All right, so in this video, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be going over what the current condition of this motorcycle is, and then we're also gonna be going over kind of what we're gonna be doing to this bike. And we're gonna take you along the way because this is gonna be a wiring rescue on this bike. So the customer of this bike reached out to us because unfortunately, he has already been to 2 other audio shops. I don't even know what shops they are. I don't know the area. I'm not even going to talk about that. What we are going to talk about is his experience and why it is here with us at Davidson Audio. So he took it to the first shop. They installed some audio. And then I guess he went to another shop because he's having issues with the first one or the system. So they went back through and they did some more stuff. So what did they do? They have a set of Euphoria 5 1/4 mid-bass speakers or mids in the fairing, and then underneath the fairing here, I don't know if you can tell, there are 2 Euphoria compression horn tweeters facing down to the feet. Then he has a set of OEM 6.5-inch lids on this bike with the OEM speakers, and they're just there. They're not working. They don't have aftermarket speakers in it. And then in each saddlebag is a single 10-inch PRV mid-bass, and then it's time to get with the actual equipment to power all of this. You would think most of it would be in the fairing, but unfortunately it's in the clutch side saddlebag. And then you also might be asking yourself, well, how do you put all of that equipment in one saddlebag with a 10? Well, what you do is you just throw it in there. So in this clutch side saddlebag is a 1200.4 Sound Digital Evo X and an 800.4 Sound Digital Evo X. And then to get the proper signal to that, they have a Dayton Audio DSP, all just thrown in the clutch side saddlebag. So I guess for a bit, the system was working, the customer was happy with it. Then he started having issues, and now he's fairly certain that one or both amplifiers are now shot, which I don't doubt it, especially with where they've been installed and where they're sitting, with them just sitting in a bag, bouncing around, and that close to a magnet. That's just a recipe for disaster. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a walk around with the bike, show you all what's going on, and then we're going to get into ripping it all out, showing you what we find along the way, and then we'll start diving into what we're doing and how we're going to accomplish this. So let's now give you a walk around of this bike and show you exactly what's going on. So let's start with the fairing, what's up here. Like I said a minute ago, these are the Euphoria, the DB Drive Euphoria 5 1/4-inch mid-bass speakers. And you got one on each side, and as you can see, there's a couple of spots where there's no screws. This one's missing 2, this one's missing 1 here. And then I guess the shop decided to put a compression horn tweeter right here facing down. And then over here, well, there was one until I pushed on it just a little bit and it fell through. So there was no ring holding this on, so we'll have to readdress that. Now, before we get to the really ugly part, let's look into this saddlebag. So like I said, OEM speaker here. They left the wiring inside the bike. This is not being used from what the customer said. And here is our PRV 10 MB 1000 FT. This is their 10-inch mid-bass speaker with a ferrite magnet. Not too bad. I mean, they use some nice expanded loom here. It's a little loose. They have another wire because back here is a compression horn that they bolted in here. And the biggest downfall is they just have 2 bolts holding it in. I don't even know. Once we get the bags off, we'll have to show you, but it's only being held on by 2 bolts, so it just kind of flops around here. But enough of this saddlebag. Let's get to the saddlebag that y'all are waiting to see. And this is where they just, in my opinion, just threw everything in it. So right here in the clutch side saddlebag is where all the fun is. So as you can see, same 10-inch mid-bass speaker sitting right here. Same compression horn over here, the big horn. But then this is the audio equipment. So you have a Dayton Audio DSP, or actually, no, that's a That might be a Euphoria. I don't know. We're going to take a look at it. It might be a Dayton. I can't tell. I'm not that versed in. No, it's a Dayton. Ugh. All right. Dayton Audio DSP. A lot of people like to use these. Oh, that RCA was out. I guess it was Velcroed at one time. There's a piece of Velcro down there, so it might have been in there. You have some wires in here. Here's 1-800-4 here, another 1200-4 right there, and like I said, this was just crammed down here. I have no idea what works and doesn't work in here. I don't want to start pulling these out because I'm fairly certain when we looked real quick, they're daisy chaining power from this 1200-4 to here and this Dayton DSP. And as you can tell, it looks like they started to bolt this Nagy ring in really good with nylon lock nuts. We don't like to do it that way. We have our own way of doing it. But then right here, it looks like to bolt the speaker in, which they just did these big old sheet metal screws and put a nylon lock nut on here, which I don't know what that's going to do. Because, yeah, like this one. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't do anything. The thread pitch of the machine bolts and these machine screws aren't even close to the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this bike for... What we're going to do here is we're just going to go ahead and get the bike fully disassembled. We'll get the fairing off. We'll get the seat off. I want to disconnect the power and ground before we do anything, because you never want to start pulling equipment out not knowing what is and is not energized or has power sitting on it. So to prevent any further damage, we're definitely going to do that. And see, there's some nice wear marks right here of where it's been rubbing. So let's get you guys set up so we can start getting this all disassembled, get the equipment pulled out, and then we'll start addressing what's getting fixed, how we need to redo it, and get this customer really enjoying his tunes. All right, so I forgot to shoot a outro for that video because originally we were just going to make it one long video with the wiring rescue and how it turned out at the end. But I decided after the fact to go ahead and break it up, show you guys what was done ahead of time and then how it turned out afterwards, like what our plan was. So in this video, what you saw us do is we disassembled the bike. We showed you what was done to the bike originally from the previous two shops. I'm not sure if it was two separate shops or if it was just the same shop, two attempts, but it originally came in just for a wiring rescue, like I said, and then it quickly turned into, well, I want to start, not necessarily like a competition style bike, but he wants something loud. He wants good solid bass. He wants to build a good big audio build on this bike. So after talking with him, we decided to go a completely different route with the bike. So in this video, we really wanted to focus on just disassembling everything in the bike, getting all the old stuff out. And just to recap, they had a set of Euphoria 5 1/4 mid-bass or mid-range speakers in the fairing with the Euphoria horn tweeters facing down. And then in the saddlebags, they had the OEM 6.5-inch lids, but they left the OEM speakers there. They just abandoned them, didn't do anything with it. And they put a PRV 10-inch mid-bass speaker in there, which I've heard they're good solid speakers. But the problem was that they were both 8-ohm, and they had them on a 1204. So, I mean, you can do the math there. It's not much power that they're getting pushed. So that was the first issue. And then at further looking into it, they were barely held in there. Like, you can kind of see it from our time lapse there with Bill disassembling the bike. I think they had 2 or 3 bolts holding those rings in there, which is not a solid way to do it. And then when they cut the hole in the bag, they cut it smaller than the ring. So what we found out is they had to actually bolt the speaker into the ring first, put the ring and the speaker in the bag, and then bolt it in from the outside. So when Bill was disassembling, a couple of them were wallowed out. They barely were holding. So, I mean, the speakers were on the edge of falling out anyways. And then from there, they had just like, in the back of the older Chieftain bags, it's almost like a 2-piece, like there's a cubby in the back. They just like hacked it all out, slid the tweeter in there and just 2 bolts. Same situation, barely holding in there. So we yanked all of that stuff out. We pulled the power and ground out of there. And like you can see in that video with Bill time-lapsing, they had a bunch of SAE style connectors underneath the seat. So nothing was serviceable. If he wanted to take a bag off, he had to take the seat off, make all these quick disconnects underneath the seat. Not the right way to do it. It's not how we do it. Completely unserviceable. And then furthermore, we found out for the power and ground, which if you can see in that time lapse, go back and look at it, they had these little blocks in the power and ground for the 1204, which is usually like for dual power and ground going into an amp if you want to run parallel runs. They had the same parallel run 8-gauge to a 1204, daisy chain from that to power the 804, and then also they had the power and ground from the Dayton Audio DSP into that as well, which is not the correct way to do it. 8-gauge cannot handle that. So I know for a fact that those amplifiers had like no power at all. So that was a big issue. So we just went ahead, ripped all of this stuff out, sat down with Chuck, and completely changed what we were going to do. So in the next following video to this, we're going to sit down, we're going to explain what we ended up doing on the build. We're going to show you a bunch of videos, and then we're going to show you the reveal of how it all turned out, talking with the customer, getting his reaction on it, because he has the bike already. He's absolutely loving it. It sounds way better. I could not be happier with the way this came out. Huge learning curve for us as a business owner, as a fabricator, as a audio installer and tuner. Huge learning curve. We learned some big things on this build, but overall turned out fantastic. The customer was super ecstatic, which y'all will find out in the next video. So again, Brandon with Davidson Audio, located here in Panama City, Florida. Come on down, get your Indian or your Harley done. We are specializing in Indian motorcycle audio, leading the way on that. And we're also going to be doing Harleys from time to time, which in a couple of videos, you'll see what we're talking about there. So come on down, give us a call, hit us up on social media, shoot us an email with anything we can do, and let us help you get your Indian sounding perfect.